The morning sun cast long shadows across the red dust of Kepler 442b as Han-Wu saddled his hoverbike. The frontier planet was nothing like the green worlds. Closer to Earth, here the sky burned orange at dawn and the rocks grew in strange, twisted shapes that hurt to look at too long. Most people called it a hellhole. Han-Wu called it home. He pulled his wide-brimmed hat down against the wind and checked his plasma pistols one more time. The twin revolvers hung heavy at his hips, their metal worn smooth from years of use. Out here on the edge of human space, a man lived or died by how fast he could draw. "Ram, run a count on the herd," he said to the small device clipped to his vest. The AI assistant chirped to life. "Good morning, Han-Wu. Current cattle count. Shows 47 head in the south pasture. 3 are missing from yesterday." Han-Wu spat into the dust. Missing cattle meant trouble. Could be the native rock wolves again, or worse. The Vex Syndicate had been spotted in this sector, and those criminals would steal anything that moved. If they thought it had value, the hover bike hummed as he kicked it to life. The machine lifted 3 feet off the ground, its repulsors kicking up small dust clouds. Han-Wu had bought it used from a cargo hauler 5 years back. It was ugly and loud, but it ran forever, and that was all that mattered out here. He rode toward the crystalline canyons where his cattle liked to graze. The bizarre formations jutted from the ground like frozen lightning, their surfaces reflecting the orange sky in 1,000 directions. Beautiful and deadly, just like everything else on this planet. Touch the wrong crystal and the electric shock would stop a man's heart. The sound reached him first. High-pitched squealing that made his teeth ache, not cattle sounds. Something else entirely. Han-Wu cut the bike's engine and listened. The squealing came again, desperate and afraid. Mixed with it were rough voices speaking in trade language. Human voices, but not friendly ones. He dismounted and crept forward, keeping low behind the crystal formations. The voices grew clearer as he moved closer. "Hold still, you little beast. These scales will fetch a fortune on Proxima Station. Careful with that one. The buyer wants them alive if possible. Alive costs extra, dead is easier to transport." Han-Wu peered around a crystal spire and felt his blood turn cold. 5 men in dirty spacer clothes had surrounded a group of small creatures. The animals looked like tiny dragons, no bigger than house cats, with scales that shifted color like oil on water. They huddled together, making those awful squealing sounds. One of the poachers held a net launcher. Another carried a plasma rifle. All of them wore the red bandanas of the Vex Syndicate. Scum who made their living stealing from honest folk? "Please, little ones, don't make this harder than it needs to be," laughed the man with the rifle. He had a cruel face marked with old scars. The dragon creatures seemed to understand. Their squealing became softer, more like crying. One of them, smaller than the rest, crawled toward its companions as if trying to protect them. Han-Wu had seen enough. He stood up, his hands already moving toward his guns. "Morning, boys," he called out. "Nice day for a walk, isn't it?" The 5 men spun around. The one with the rifle raised it immediately. "Move along, Cowboy. This doesn't concern you." "See, that's where you're wrong." Han-Wu stepped into the open, his thumbs hooked near his gun belts. "Those little critters are on my land." "Makes it my concern," the scarred man laughed. "Your land? This whole planet is open range. No one owns the wild spaces." "Maybe so. But I don't much like watching grown men pick on babies." His eyes never left the rifle barrel. "So here's how this goes. You pack up your nets and your attitude and you ride off my range. Do it now, and everyone goes home breathing." 5 against 1, old man. You sure you want to play those odds?" Han-Wu smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Old man?" "Son, I was killing pirates when you were still learning to tie your boots." The tension stretched like a wire about to snap. The dragon creatures had gone quiet, sensing the danger. One of the poachers shifted his weight. Hand moving toward a sidearm, that was all Han-Wu needed. His hands moved in a blur. The twin plasma pistols cleared their holsters faster than human eyes could follow. Twin beams of superheated energy struck the man with the rifle and another poacher before they could even aim. The remaining 3 scattered, diving for cover behind the crystals. Plasma bolts flew back and forth, striking stone and crystal in bursts of light and heat. One poacher tried to circle around, but Hyun-woo was already moving, using the bizarre rock formations like an old gunfighter would use buildings and barrels. "You're crazy," shouted one of the survivors. "Those things aren't even worth dying for." "Maybe not to you," Hyun-woo called back. He put 2 more bolts into the crystal where the man was hiding, making it glow red hot. "But I never did like bullies." The fight lasted less than 2 minutes. When the dust settled, 2 poachers lay dead and the other 3 were running for their ship, leaving their equipment behind. Hyun-woo holstered his guns and turned toward the small dragon creatures. They watched him with large golden eyes, still huddled together. Up close, he could see that several were injured. Cuts from nets and burns from stun weapons marked their beautiful scales. "Easy now," he said softly, kneeling down. "I'm not going to hurt you." The smallest one, the one who had tried to protect. The others took a hesitant step forward. It sniffed at his outstretched hand, then made a soft chirping sound. "Rum," he said to his AI assistant. "Run a bioscan on these little ones. I need to know how badly they're hurt." Scanning now. These appear to be juvenile specimens of an unknown species. Energy readings are unusual. I detect significant injuries in 3 subjects, minor wounds in 4 others. Can they travel? With care, yes. But Hyun-woo, you should know something. I'm picking up massive energy signatures on the edge of the system. Something very large is approaching. The smallest dragon creature had come close enough to touch his hand. Its scales were warm and seemed to pulse with inner light. As their skin made contact, Hyun-woo felt something strange, a sense of intelligence, of gratitude. And underneath it all, something that felt like vast, patient power. "Well, little ones," he said, gently gathering the injured creatures. "Looks like we all might be in for more trouble than we bargained for." As he loaded the 7 dragon creatures into the cargo compartment of his hoverbike, Hyun-woo could not shake the feeling that his simple life as a frontier rancher was about to get very complicated. The energy signatures Bioram had detected were growing stronger by the hour. Something was coming to his world. Something big and angry, and somehow he suspected it had everything to do with the 7 small lives he had just saved. The 7 small dragon creatures slept peacefully in Hyun-woo's barn, curled together like puppies. He had spent the last 3 hours cleaning their wounds and feeding them scraps of meat from his food stores. They seemed to trust him now, following him around with their large golden eyes and making soft chirping sounds when he spoke. "But, what's the status on those energy readings?" Hyun-woo asked as he checked the barn's security systems one more time. "The signatures are much stronger now. Whatever is approaching should arrive within the next few hours." "Hyun-woo, the energy output is beyond anything in our databases. This is not a normal spaceship." Through the barn's small window, Hyun-woo could see the orange sky beginning to darken. 2 of Kepler 442b's 3 moons were already visible, casting strange shadows across his ranch. He had lived here for 8 years and had never seen anything that worried him this much. The emergency alert siren began wailing from the direction of New Haven, the main human settlement 20 miles away. The sound carried clearly across the empty plains, rising and falling in the pattern that meant all citizens should seek shelter immediately. "That's not good," Hyun-woo muttered. He activated his long-range communicator and tried to raise the colonial government. "This is Ranch 7 calling New Haven Control. What's your situation?" The voice that answered was tight with fear. "Hyun-woo? Thank God, this is Governor Jinho. We have a situation up here. Something massive just dropped out of hyperspace. It's bigger than our entire settlement." "How big?" "Think of our largest cargo ship. Now imagine something 50 times that size. It's not responding to any of our communications, and our sensors are going crazy. The energy readings are off the charts." Hyun-woo felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. "Any hostile actions?" "Not yet, but it's just sitting there in orbit, like it's waiting for something. We're trying to establish contact, but nothing we send gets through. It's like the thing doesn't even know we exist." The smallest dragon creature, the one that had first approached him, began making worried sounds. It looked toward the sky and its scales started changing color, shifting from their normal blue-green to deep red. I have to go, Jinho. Keep me informed. Wait, Haiyan-Wu, there's something else. We picked up energy weapon discharge from your sector earlier. Are you all right? Had some uninvited guests? Vex Syndicate poachers. I sent them packing. Poachers? What were they after? Haiyan-Wu looked at the 7 small creatures in his barn. They were all awake now, their scales glowing brighter as they looked toward the sky. I'll explain later. Right now, I think we have bigger problems. The communication channel went dead. Not cut off, but filled with a sound like static mixed with whale songs. The noise was so loud it hurt to listen to, and underneath it was something else. Something that felt like anger. All 7 dragon creatures began crying at once. Not the scared sounds they had made before, but something deeper. It was the sound of children calling for their mother. That was when Haiyan-Wu understood. Oh, hell, he whispered. The sky above his ranch began to glow. Not the normal orange of sunset, but a fierce blue-white light that hurt to look at directly. Something was coming down from orbit. Something that made the air itself hum with power. Haiyan-Wu ran outside and looked up. A shape was descending through the atmosphere, surrounded by flames that were not flames. As it grew closer, he could make out details that made his mouth go dry. It was a dragon. A real dragon, bigger than any ship he had ever seen. Its scales were the same color as the little ones in his barn, but these scales were each the size of a car door. Wings that could cover his entire ranch beat slowly. Holding the massive creature aloft with impossible grace, the dragon's eyes were like burning suns, and when it opened its mouth, the roar that came out shook the ground for miles around. This was not just an animal. This was something ancient and powerful and very, very angry. But Oram, Haiyan-Wu said quietly, I think Mama just came home. Energy readings are increasing exponentially. Haiyan-Wu, that creature is charging some kind of weapon system. If it fires, the blast could destroy everything within a 100-mile radius. The dragon landed in the field behind his house with a crash that made the ground jump. Up close, Haiyan-Wu could see that it was even larger than he had thought. Its head alone was the size of a small building, and its eyes held an intelligence that was clearly not human. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in his mind. The voice was female and ancient beyond measure. Where are my children? The mental voice was so powerful it drove Haiyan-Wu to his knees. He could feel the dragon's mind pressing against his own, searching for answers. Images flashed through his thoughts. The poachers with their nets and weapons. The fight among the crystal formations. The 7 small creatures sleeping in his barn? Human? The voice said, slightly less crushing now. You have seen my young ones. Haiyan-Wu struggled to his feet. Every instinct told him to run, but he knew there was nowhere to go. This creature could probably track him anywhere on the planet. Yes, he said aloud. They're safe. I have them. The dragon's massive head lowered until it was only a few feet. Away, this close, Haiyan-Wu could see his own reflection in those burning eyes. The creature's breath was like standing next to a furnace. You killed the thieves who hunted them. It was not a question. The dragon had seen everything when it touched his mind. Yes, I don't like seeing children get hurt, no matter what species they are. For a long moment, the dragon said nothing. Its eyes studied him with an intelligence that was older than human civilization. Finally, it spoke again. I am Ran. Of the Draknari, my children were taken from our world 3 days ago. I have followed their trail across the galaxy. They're hurt, but alive. I've been taking care of them. Show me. It was not a request. Haiyan-Wu nodded and walked toward his barn, very aware of the massive creature following behind him. Each of her footsteps shook the ground. Inside the barn, the 7 small dragon creatures were waiting. When they saw Ran, they cried out in joy and rushed toward her. The huge dragon lowered her head, and her children climbed onto her snout, chirping and nuzzling against her scales. Thank you, human. Iran said, and this time her mental voice was gentle. You have shown kindness to my young. This will not be forgotten. Just doing what anyone would do, Hyun-woo said. No, what anyone should do, there is a difference. The dragon's eyes met his again. But I must warn you. The thieves who took my children were not acting alone. They work for others. Others who consider your species to be a threat. A threat to who? To those who believe they rule the galaxy. Your people are young and small, but you have something that frightens the old powers. You have the ability to stand against forces much stronger than yourselves. Hyun-woo thought about the 5 poachers he had faced down that morning. About his decision to fight when the smart thing would have been to walk away. Sometimes you have to fight even when you can't win. Doesn't mean you're stupid, just means some things are worth fighting for. Aaron made a sound that might have been dragon laughter. Yes, human Hyun-woo, that is exactly what frightens them. 3 hours after Aaron's arrival, the sky filled with ships. Hyun-woo stood in his front yard, watching dozens of dark vessels emerge from hyperspace. They were nothing like human ships, all curves and spines that hurt to look at. Each one was the size of a city block, and they moved with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. Count them, he said quietly. 47 vessels detected. Energy signatures match no known human technology. I'm also detecting gravity distortions around the planet. Something is being deployed in our orbit. Iran lifted her massive head from where she had been nuzzling her children. Her scales began shifting to a darker color, almost black. They have come faster than I expected, she said into Hyun-woo's mind. The hegemony does not like to be kept waiting. The what now? An empire that spans half the galaxy? They believe all other species should serve them or die. Your people have caught their attention, and they do not like what they see. A new voice cut through the planet's communication channels. It spoke in perfect human language, but there was something wrong with the sound. Too many clicking noises, like insects talking. Attention, inhabitants of this world. I am Admiral Taemin of the Hegemony Fleet. You will surrender the rogue Draknari and submit to our authority immediately. Governor Jinho's voice answered. From New Haven. This is Governor Jinho of the human colony. We are not part of your conflict. We demand safe passage for our civilians. The insect voice laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You demand? Small human, you understand nothing? Your species has already been judged. You will serve the hegemony or be removed. What are you talking about? We're just farmers and miners. We're not a threat to anyone. That is where you are wrong. We have studied your kind. You have a dangerous trait. You resist mental control. You fight even when you cannot win. You inspire others to rebellion. This makes you useful as slaves or dangerous as enemies. We prefer useful. Hyun-woo felt his blood run cold. They want to enslave humanity. Iran's eyes blazed brighter. The hegemony rules through fear and mind control. Most species submit when they realize they cannot win. But humans are different. Your minds work in ways that make you immune to their psychic domination. The communication channel crackled again. Draknari Iran, you will surrender yourself. And your offspring, your rebellion has gone on long enough. Never, Iran replied, her mental voice carrying across all frequencies. My children are free, as am I, as all thinking beings should be. Then you have chosen death. For yourself and for these humans who harbor you. The hegemony ships began moving into attack positions, but something else was happening. The space around the planet was bending, twisting in ways that made Hyun-woo's eyes water to look at. Ram, what's happening up there? The gravity distortions are intensifying. They appear to be artificial. Hyun-woo, I think they're creating some kind of trap. A new ship appeared, larger than all the others. This one was sleek and predatory, covered in weapons that glowed with deadly energy. From it came another transmission. I am Vorthok, mate of Iran, father to the children you tried to steal. The voice was similar to Iran's but deeper, filled with barely controlled rage. Release my family, and I will make your deaths. Quick! Admiral Taman's laugh filled the communication channels again. Perfect. Now I have both adult Draknari in one place. You see, humans, this was never about your world. It was bait. We needed to draw out the last free Draknari elders. You used us? Governor Jinho said, his voice shaking with anger. Of course, your species excels at forming attachments to other life forms. We knew if we threatened the young ones, the parents would come, and they would trust you to help protect them. Hianwu looked up at Seiran. Is that true? Did you know this was a trap? The great dragon was quiet for a moment. I suspected, but my children were in danger. A parent does what they must, even if it means walking into certain death? Especially. Then more ships were arriving now. Not hegemony vessels, but Draknari ones. They were beautiful in a way that made Hyungwoo's chest ache. Like living creatures made of metal and light, they danced through space as if they were swimming through water. My people come to fight, Vorthek announced. But it may not be enough. The hegemony has surrounded this world with gravity mines. If we attack, they will collapse into black holes and destroy everything. Then we're trapped, Jinho said. Not necessarily, a new voice cut in. This one was human, female and determined. This is Engineer Miyang at the mining station. I've been listening to everything and I have an idea. Let's hear it, Hyunwoo said. The crystal formations on this planet, they're not just pretty rocks. They're natural amplifiers for electromagnetic energy. If we could find a way to channel enough power through them, we might be able to create an electromagnetic pulse big enough to disable those gravity mines. How much power would that take? Seiran asked. More than our entire settlement produces in a year. But if we combined human technology with Draknari energy manipulation ... it might work, Vorthek said. But someone would have to activate the system manually. From inside the crystal caves, the electromagnetic feedback would be enormous. Hyunwoo looked at the 7 small dragon creatures, now playing around their mother's feet. He thought about his sister Yunji, somewhere out there on a world already under hegemony control. He thought about every human colony that would fall if they failed here. I'll do it, he said. Hyunwoo, you don't understand, Mi Young protested. The person who activates that system probably won't survive. The energy levels will be lethal to human physiology. Maybe, but if we don't try, everyone dies anyway. Seiran lowered her great head until her eyes were level with his. You would do this? Risk your life for beings you barely know? That's what humans do, Hyunwoo said simply. We fight for what's right, even when we can't win, especially then. The great dragon studied him for a long moment. Then she made that sound that might have been laughter again. Yes, human Hyunwoo. I am beginning to understand why the hegemony fears your species. Above them, the enemy ships moved closer. Time was running out. Then we better get started, Hyunwoo said, checking his plasma pistols one more time. I've got a feeling this is going to be a very long day. The crystal caves stretched deep into the planet's core, their walls pulsing with natural energy that made the air taste like copper and lightning. Hyunwoo led the mixed group of humans and young Draknari through passages that had never seen. Sunlight dot behind him, Engineer Mi Young carried a portable power unit that would connect to the crystal network. Captain Du Hyan and his colonial militia had insisted on coming along, even though this was supposed to be a stealth mission. The resonance chamber should be just ahead, Mi Young whispered, consulting her scanner. The crystal formation there is the largest on the planet. If we can channel enough energy through it, the electromagnetic pulse will reach orbit. 3 young Draknari warriors had volunteered to guide them. They moved like shadows, their scales shifting color to match the cave walls perfectly. Hyunwoo had never seen camouflage so complete. It was like they were made of living light. Contact ahead, one of the Draknari warned, his mental voice barely a whisper in their minds. Hegemony ground forces have reached the caves. They crept forward until they could see the enemy. Insectoid creatures the size of men, but wrong in every way that mattered. Too many joints in their arms and legs. Eyes like black marbles. weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Kithara soldiers? Duhayan identified quietly. We faced them on Kepler 186F before the colony fell. They're fast and they don't feel pain like we do. How many? 20, maybe 30? All between us and the resonance chamber. Haiyan Wu studied the layout. The Kithara had set up a defensive position around the chamber entrance. They knew exactly where the humans needed to go. They're not just here to stop us, he realized. They're here to capture us. Admiral Taman wants to study how human minds resist their control. Then we don't let them take us alive, Duhayan said grimly. There might be another way. Han Wu looked at the three Dragonlings warriors. Your camouflage ability. Can you teach it to others? The eldest warrior, a female named Kira, tilted her head. It is not something we teach. It is something we are born with. But ... But what? There are stories. Old stories of Dragonlings who shared their gifts with trusted allies in times of great need. It requires a mental bond. Very dangerous for both species. Mi-young checked her chronometer. We're running out of time. The hegemony ships are getting closer to firing position. Above ground, they could hear the sounds of battle. Plasma fire and explosions echoed through the cave system. The Kithara. Ground assault had begun in earnest. Do it, Haiyan-Wu decided. Whatever it takes, Kira approached him slowly. Give me your hand, human. This may hurt. When their skin touched, the world exploded into sensation. Han-Wu felt Kira's mind merge with his own, sharing thoughts and memories at a speed that made him dizzy. He saw her homeworld burned by hegemony weapons. Her family enslaved or killed. Her determination to fight until the end, and she saw his memories in return. Earth, green and blue and beautiful. His sister Yunji laughing in the summer sun before the colonies claimed her. His years on this harsh frontier world, making a life where others saw only wasteland. The pain was enormous, like having his skull cracked open and filled with molten metal. But when it ended, Han-Wu could feel something new in his mind, a connection to the electromagnetic fields around him, an awareness of light and energy that he had never possessed before. Now, Kira said weakly, think of not being seen. Make your mind empty of everything except the desire to fade from sight, Haiyan-Wu concentrated. His skin began to tingle, and when he looked down at his hands, they seemed to shimmer and blur. Not invisible, but hard to focus on. Like trying to look at something that wasn't quite there. It's working, Mi-young gasped. I can barely see you. The effect won't last long, Kira warned. Maybe 20 minutes. Use the time well. Duhayan and his militiamen created a diversion at the main entrance while Haiyan-Wu slipped past the Kithara guards. His new camouflage ability wasn't perfect, but in the dim cave lighting, it was enough. The resonance chamber was a natural cathedral, carved from living crystal. The formations here were enormous, reaching from floor to ceiling in columns of pure geometric beauty. Energy danced between them in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Mi-young's power unit seemed tiny in comparison to the natural forces at work in this place. She began connecting cables to specific crystal nodes, following calculations she had worked out on the surface. This should work, she muttered to herself. The crystals will amplify any electromagnetic signal by a factor of several thousand. If we can generate enough initial power... How much power? Everything the settlement has, plus the backup fusion reactors, plus whatever energy the Dragonlings can channel through their natural abilities, and the person who activates it? Mi-young's hands stopped moving. We'll be at the center of an electromagnetic storm that could power a small city. The human nervous system isn't designed to handle that kind of energy. But it might survive? It might, if the person had some kind of protection. Or if they weren't entirely human anymore. Han-Wu thought about the mental bond with Kira, about the way his perception had changed, about the 7 small dragon creatures who had trusted him from the beginning, the Dragonling cubs. They're still bonded to me from when I rescued them. Could that connection provide protection? I don't know. We're in completely unknown territory here. The sounds of battle were getting closer. Plasma fire echoed through the chamber as Duhyan's militia fought a running battle with the Cathara soldiers. "We're out of time," Hyanwu said. "Start the sequence." Mi Young activated the power transfer. Energy began flowing from the settlement's reactors through the crystal network. The chamber filled with light and sound as ancient formations that had slept for millions of years suddenly came alive. "It's working," Mi Young shouted over the noise. "But the energy levels are fluctuating. I need someone at the central control node to stabilize the flow." The central control node was a crystal platform in the middle of the chamber, surrounded by arcing electricity and waves of pure energy. Standing there would be like grabbing hold of a lightning bolt. "That's my job?" Hyanwu said as he stepped onto the platform. He felt the 7 small dragon creatures reaching out to him across the miles. Their minds touched his, offering their strength and their trust. Through them, he could feel S.A. Iran and Vorthek, lending their ancient power to the effort. The energy hit him like a physical blow. Every nerve in his body screamed as electromagnetic. Forces beyond human understanding flowed through the crystal network. But the dragon bond held, distributing the load across multiple minds, keeping any one consciousness from being overwhelmed. Above them, the electromagnetic pulse raced toward orbit at the speed of light. Gravity mines designed to collapse into artificial black holes suddenly found their delicate control systems scrambled by energies they were never built to handle. "It's working," came Vorthak's mental shout from space. "The mines are destabilizing. All Draknari ships attack now." But the victory came at a cost. The energy flowing through Hyanwu was changing him at a fundamental level. He could feel his human consciousness stretching, expanding, becoming something new. "Hold on," Mi Young shouted. "Just a few more seconds." Hyanwu gritted his teeth and held on, riding the lightning while alien minds helped bear the load. Around him, the crystal chamber sang with power that had never been unleashed in the planet's billion-year history. In space above, the battle for humanity's future had begun. Pain beyond human understanding flowed through Hyanwu's body as the crystal chamber unleashed forces that had slept since the planet's birth. The electromagnetic pulse raced toward orbit, carrying with it the hopes of 2 species and the fury of ancient powers awakened to war. Through his bond with the 7 dragon cubs, Hyanwu could feel their minds supporting his own, preventing the enormous energies from tearing his consciousness apart. But it was not enough. The power levels were too high, the feedback too intense. His human brain was beginning to break down under the strain. "I can't hold it much longer," he gasped, blood running from his nose and ears. In space above, the pulse struck the hegemony's gravity mine network like a hammer blow. Dozens of artificial black holes flickered and died as their control systems failed. The trap that had surrounded the planet collapsed in moments. "All ships, attack." Vorthek's mental roar echoed across the battlefield. The Draknari fleet struck like living lightning, their bioships dancing between enemy vessels with impossible grace. But Admiral Taman had not survived this long by being unprepared. His flagship opened fire with weapons that could crack moons, and the hegemony fleet responded with devastating coordination. "Draknari vessel destroyed," came the reports. 2 more heavily damaged. Enemy losses minimal. In the crystal chamber, Hyanwu felt his grip on consciousness slipping. The electromagnetic feedback was burning through his nervous system like acid. Only the dragon bond kept him alive, and even that was failing. "The energy levels are too high," Mi Young shouted over the chaos. "We need to shut down the system before it kills you." "No!" Hyanwu forced the words through gritted teeth. "The pulse needs to reach maximum strength, or it won't disable enough of their ships." Through his expanding awareness, he could sense the battle raging above. Human colonist Jiangsu was piloting a modified mining ship, using its industrial cutting. Lasers against enemy fighters. Captain Duhyan had reached the surface and was coordinating ground defenses against Cathara landing parties, but it was not enough. The hegemony had too many ships, too many soldiers, too much firepower. Unless something changed soon, this world would fall like all the others. That was when the 7 dragon cubs made their decision, without warning. Han-Wu felt their minds fully merge with his own. Not just supporting him, but becoming part of him. Their young consciousness flowed into his human awareness, bringing with them instincts and abilities that had never existed in a single being before. "What are you doing?" He tried to ask, but the question dissolved as his sense of self expanded beyond anything he had ever imagined. Through dragon senses, he could perceive electromagnetic fields as clearly as visible light. Through human determination, he could focus that perception into surgical precision. The combination was something new in the galaxy's history. Power flowed through the crystal network under his direct control now, shaped by will rather than mere machinery. The electromagnetic pulse intensified, but instead of random destruction, it became a precisely targeted weapon dot in space. Hegemony ships found their weapon systems failing one by one. Not destroyed, but subtly reprogrammed. Targeting computers began firing on their own allies. Shield generators created gaps instead of protection. "Impossible," Admiral Taman's voice carried confusion for the first time. "Our systems are hardened against electromagnetic attack." "Not against this," Vorthek replied, his mental voice filled with wonder. "I have never seen power channeled with such precision. What is happening down there?" In the crystal chamber, Hyun-Woo was no longer entirely human. The dragon cubs had permanently bonded with his consciousness, creating a hybrid awareness that was both completely alien and utterly familiar. He could feel their thoughts as clearly as his own, and they could share his memories and emotions. Through their enhanced senses, he perceived the entire battle in perfect detail. Every ship, every weapon, every tactical decision was laid bare to his expanding awareness. "Me, young," he said, his voice carrying harmonics that had never existed in human speech. "Redirect power to the deep crystal arrays. I can use them to target specific systems on individual ships." The engineer stared at him in shock. His eyes now glowed with the same golden light as the dragon cubs, and when he moved, there was something inhuman in his grace. "Hyun-Woo? You still you? I'm more than I was?" he replied. "But still me, still human where it counts." He reached out through the crystal network, his consciousness riding electromagnetic waves across space. One by one, he touched the minds of the Cathara soldiers attacking the surface. Unlike humans, their minds were vulnerable to psychic intrusion. "Sleep," he whispered across the psychic link, and 1,000 insectoid warriors collapsed where they stood. Admiral Taman's flagship shuddered as its main weapons array turned on itself. Secondary explosions rippled through the massive vessel as safety systems failed in cascading patterns. "Retreat," the admiral ordered. "All ships, emergency hyperspace jump." But Hyun-Woo was not done. Through the crystal network, he reached out to touch the minds of every hegemony soldier and crew member in the system. What he found there shocked him. They were not evil, as he had expected. They were terrified. Generations of psychic conditioning had taught them that resistance was futile, that their empire was the natural order of the galaxy. The very concept of successful rebellion was so foreign that their minds rejected it instinctively, but now they had seen the impossible. Human technology and Draknari power working in perfect harmony. Their inferior enemies had not just defeated them, but made them defeat themselves. For the first time in centuries, doubt crept into hegemony hearts. "This is not over, humans," Admiral Taman transmitted as his damaged fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. "The full might of the hegemony will return. Your world will burn." "Maybe," Hyun-Woo replied, his voice carrying across all frequencies. "But today it didn't. And that's enough for now." The hegemony ships vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind only debris and the echoing memory of their fear. In the crystal chamber, Hyun-Woo finally stepped down from the control platform. The energy was fading now, leaving him feeling hollow and strange. The 7 dragon cubs were still part of him, their consciousness permanently intertwined with his own. "How do you feel?" Mi-young asked carefully. "Different," he said honestly, "but not lost. I'm still human. I'm just not only human anymore." Above ground, the sounds of celebration were beginning to reach them. The battle was over. Against all odds, they had won, but Haiyan knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and the hegemony ruled most of it. Today's victory would bring attention that humanity was not ready for. They would need to be ready for what came next. And he would help them prepare, in ways that no purely human mind could imagine. 6 months after the battle, Haiyan Wu stood in his front yard watching the morning sun rise over a world that was no longer the same. Where once there had been empty plains, now a dozen different species worked together to build something unprecedented. In galactic history, the 7 dragon cubs, now grown to the size of horses, grazed peacefully among structures that seemed to grow from the ground itself. Drachnary bioarchitecture flowed like living coral, while human prefab buildings stood in practical rows. Between them, other species had added their own touches. Crystalline spires from the Veltar refugees. Underground warrens built by the molefolk of Kepler-296c. All of them had come seeking the same thing, freedom from hegemony rule. Morning report, Ram announced from his vest. 17 new refugee ships arrived overnight. That brings our total population to just over 50,000 beings representing 32 species. Any problems with integration? Minor disputes over food preparation methods between the Saurian cooks and the human kitchen staff. Nothing. That couldn't be resolved with compromise. Haiyan nodded, adjusting his hat against the morning glare. Some things never changed. He still wore the same wide-brimmed hat and plasma pistols that had served him as a simple rancher. But now those weapons were enhanced with Drachnary biotech, and his hat contained communication arrays that could reach across star systems. Haiyan-Wu. A familiar voice called from across the settlement. His sister Yunji came running toward him, her face bright with excitement. She had arrived 3 months ago on a refugee ship from the Hegemony Core Worlds, one of thousands of humans liberated from slave colonies. "What's got you so worked up this early?" he asked, smiling at her enthusiasm. "The communication from Earth came through. The Home Fleet wants to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Free Coalition. They're sending an ambassador. About time. I was wondering when the government would stop pretending we don't exist." Through his enhanced senses, Han could feel the excitement rippling through the settlement. The other species had been waiting to see if humanity as a whole would accept this new role as liberators and protectors. Sa-Ron approached from where she had been teaching young refugees about electromagnetic manipulation. The great dragon had taken on the role of teacher and protector for the growing community. "This is good news," she said, her mental voice warm with approval. "But it also means greater dangers ahead. The hegemony will not ignore an official alliance between Earth and the rebellion. Let them come," Haiyan said quietly. "We'll be ready." He walked toward the training grounds where Captain Du Haiyan was drilling a mixed unit of humans and aliens in combined tactics. The sight would have been impossible to imagine just months ago. Human soldiers riding Drachnary partners through aerial maneuvers while crystalline warriors provided ground support with their natural energy weapons. "How are they progressing?" Haiyan asked. "Better than I dared hope," Du Haiyan replied. "Turns out humans have a talent for adapting alien fighting styles to our own purposes, and the other species are learning from our tactical flexibility." In the distance, Han could see engineer Mi Young working with a team of Veltar technicians on the new crystal communication array. The massive structure would allow instant communication across half the galaxy, coordinating refugee evacuations and resistance movements. "The network is almost complete," she had told him yesterday. "Once we bring it online, every slave world will know that freedom is possible. The hegemony won't be able to hide their defeats anymore." A soft chirping sound drew his attention. The 7 dragon cubs, his permanent mental companions, were calling to him. Through their shared consciousness, he could sense something approaching from space. Rem scan for incoming vessels. I detect 3 ships emerging from hyperspace. Configuration matches hegemony scout vessels, but they're broadcasting surrender codes. "More refugees, then?" They came every day now, fleeing worlds where the news of humanity's resistance had sparked uprisings. Not all succeeded in escaping, but enough did to keep hope alive across the galaxy. Haiyan Wu felt a familiar weight settle on his shoulders. Each new arrival meant more responsibility, more lives depending on his ability to hold this fragile alliance together. Sometimes he missed the simple days, when his biggest worry was counting cattle, but then he would remember the terrified squealing of 7 small dragon creatures, and he knew he had made the right choice. "Sir?" a young voice interrupted his thoughts. It was Ho, one of the human colonists who had volunteered for the communication corps. "We're receiving a priority transmission from the Andromeda sector. It's Admiral Tayman. Put it through." The familiar insectoid clicking filled the air as Tayman's voice emerged from the communicators. But something was different. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been respect. "Human Haiyan Wu. I bring word from the Hegemony High Council. I'm listening. Your resistance has spread to 47 worlds. Slave species. Across 3 sectors are in open rebellion. The economic disruption alone has cost the Hegemony more resources than entire star systems generate in a year." "Good," the High Council offers terms. "Withdraw your support from the rebels, and humanity will be granted status as a protected client species. You will keep your independence and your colonies." Haiyan Wu was quiet for a long moment, feeling the thoughts and emotions of hundreds of refugee species through the psychic links he had developed. Fear, hope, desperate need for someone to stand against the darkness that had ruled their lives for so long. "Counteroffer," he said finally. "The Hegemony grants independence to every species currently in rebellion. All slave colonies are freed. All occupied worlds are evacuated. Do this, and humanity will consider not expanding our liberation efforts to the core worlds." Tayman's laugh was bitter. "You make demands as if you were an equal power." "You are? One small world with a handful of alien allies." "Maybe, but we're the world that beat you. We're the world that proved the Hegemony could be defeated. And every day, more species remember what freedom looks like." "This is your final answer?" "It is." Then the war continues. "But know this, human. You have changed something in the galaxy. That cannot be unchanged. Even if you fall, others will rise to take your place. Perhaps that is victory enough." The transmission ended, leaving silence in its wake. EU Unji moved to stand beside her brother. "Think they'll really try a full invasion?" "Eventually. But not today. Today we keep building, keep training, keep giving people hope." Around them, the impossible settlement buzzed with life and purpose, humans and dragons working side by side. Former slaves teaching children of a dozen species that freedom was worth fighting for. Engineers and scientists from across the galaxy, collaborating on technologies that would have seemed like magic just years before it was not perfect. There were still disputes, still problems, still moments of doubt. But it was something the galaxy had not seen in 1,000 years, a place where beings chose to stand together instead of kneeling alone. Haiyan Wu adjusted his hat and checked his enhanced plasma pistols one more time. In the distance, more refugee ships were appearing in the sky, carrying more beings who had heard that freedom was possible. The frontier had gotten bigger than he ever imagined. But some things never changed. Sometimes you had to fight for what was right, whether the threat came from cattle rustlers or galactic empires, and sometimes, if you were lucky and stubborn enough, you might even win. The 7 dragon cubs gathered around him, their scales shimmering in the morning light. Through their shared consciousness, he could feel their absolute trust and loyalty. They would follow him anywhere, fight any enemy, face any danger, just like the thousands of other beings who now called this impossible place home. "Well, partners," Haiyan Wu said to his dragon companions, "looks like we've got work to do." Together, they walked toward the landing field where the newest refugees were arriving, ready to offer them the same thing he had offered 7 scared dragon cubs in a crystal canyon: protection, purpose, and proof that freedom was worth any price. The galaxy had changed forever the day a simple rancher decided that Some things were worth fighting for, and the best part was it was only the beginning.